Over the years, the acronym NFL has showcased multiple meanings beyond what it actually stands for. Some people have called it the National Felon League, in reference to many players' criminal records. Others often call it the No Fun League, due to strict penalty enforcement on things like excessive celebration. But perhaps no acronym better defines the NFL quite like this one.
This is the NFL, which stands for not for long.
The average length of an NFL player's career is 3.3 years, meaning a large number of the players that made up rosters we saw in Week 1 of 2021 are now spending their Sundays on couches like the rest of us. Now, obviously, a lot of this roster turnover has to do with backups and players on the bottom end of the roster that most fans wouldn't know the name of or recognize if they saw them. The stars, who almost anyone who watches football can name, have much longer careers. But even with that said, we see a ton of roster changes that make the league look completely different every 3 years. Let's use the most important combination in football as an example: a team's starting quarterback and head coach. Of the 32 franchises, just 13 have the same starting quarterback in 2024 as they did in 2021. Coincidentally, we see the same number of head coaches still in charge. And for teams that have retained both their starting quarterback and head coach, it's even lower, at just 8 franchises. For the rest of this video, I'm just going to use quarterbacks and head coaches to show you how much the league has changed.
The 2021 Coach of the Year is Mike Vrabel.
Belichick was rewarded with Executive of the Year.
The 2021 AP Most Valuable Player is Aaron Rodgers.
He'll be 41 in early December, coming off of the torn Achilles tendon. Do we think Aaron Rodgers is going to hold up physically through 17 games?
As you just saw, there are numerous high-profile examples of the changes we've seen since 2021, but I want to go more in depth into a few specific examples, starting with this guy. When the 2021 season began, Russell Wilson was one of the most well-respected, high-end starting quarterbacks in the entire league. Entering their 10th year together, Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll had defied the odds since the beginning. And by this point, despite some inner turmoil between the organization and Russell Wilson's camp, the on-field product remained as impressive as ever and had shown few signs of slowing down.
Because of all that happened in the offseason and went through and the time we spent together, I think it's as connected as it's ever been.
Wilson was coming off a 40 passing touchdown season, and in the 2021 preseason was listed as a top 5 MVP candidate. To say a lot has changed from this point would be an understatement. The team disappointed in 2021, missing the playoffs, but Wilson was still viewed as a high-end quarterback. After years of contention between the organization and Wilson, the team agreed to trade him after his Pro Bowl 2021 season. In a blockbuster deal, Wilson was sent to the Broncos for a massive haul, including a first and second round pick and 3 players.
In my opinion, huge win for Russell Wilson. Denver doesn't need draft picks. Denver's ready to win a Super Bowl.
This immediately made Denver a respected contender, as they garnered one of the highest Super Bowl odds in the entire league. But what followed can be described as shocking.
Wilson dancing out of the pocket and throws it away, and once again, with boos raining down, Denver is not able to get it done.
Wilson and the Broncos were terrible. So much so that they fired first-year head coach Nathaniel Hackett before the season was over, and Wilson's legacy and reputation had taken a hit.
The only good thing Russell Wilson has brought to Denver is Sierra.
Yeah.
He looks bad. This offense looks horrible.
If I was a teammate of his and he was doing some high knees while I was trying to sleep, I would have tripped his ass.
Meanwhile, Wilson's former backup Geno Smith, who had been one of the league's afterthoughts for nearly a decade, was a breakout star in Seattle.
They wrote me off. I ain't right back, though. That's the problem. I ain't right back. Let's go.
All right. Congratulations, Geno.
Wind up with him offset.
Smith looking for the end zone and Lockett. Oh, what? And he drops it in. Tyler Lockett with the touchdown. You kidding me?
Going back over to Denver, even with the hiring of Sean Payton, The drop-off in Russell Wilson's play was so dramatic that this was seen as a reclamation project more than a great situation. And even though 2023 went better than 2022, the supporters of Russell Wilson's on-field performance were few and far between by this point. The Broncos were so ready to move on that they released him after the season and took the largest dead cap hit in NFL history. Meanwhile, in Seattle, after 2 straight Pro Bowl appearances, Geno Smith had become one of the NFL's best stories in recent memory. He enters 2024 as the starter for Seattle once again. Looking at the careers of Geno Smith and Russell Wilson is pretty insane. They are about the same age and have about the same amount of years in the NFL, and yet they have perfectly opposite career paths. Okay, let's go back to 2021 for our next example I want to take a closer look at.
Well, I know it's the cliche of cliches. Nothing lasts forever.
Entering the 2021 season, Baker Mayfield was a hero in Cleveland. He had helped facilitate the franchise's first playoff appearance in nearly 2 decades, along with their first playoff win since the franchise returned to Cleveland. Excitement in Cleveland was at an all-time high, until about midway through the 2021 season.
9 third downs, and this one's picked! Intercepted! As Douglas has got his second of the game.
Mayfield suffered a partially torn labrum in week 2 that would change the course of his career. In a contract year, he continued to play through the injury, knowing his chances for a big payday were on the line. But looking back retrospectively, it was probably a bad idea.
But in the midst of it, should I have probably gotten surgery and sat out? Yeah, probably.
The season was a disaster. One incident that highlighted this better than any was the OBJ situation. If you remember, OBJ's dad posted a video on his social media that went viral. Basically, it was clip after clip showcasing OBJ being open and Baker not throwing to him for whatever reason. This resulted in an online frenzy that was directed at the Browns coaching and more specifically, Baker.
I've had conversations with his dad before, man-to-man, face-to-face, and I was pretty surprised by the video and, the intentions and the feelings behind it. I'd be lying if I said otherwise, but hurt? No, I'm good.
Shortly thereafter, the Browns released OBJ, and the public view of Baker Mayfield as a player continued to worsen throughout the year. He played poorly most of the season. The Browns missed the playoffs, and by the end, the unthinkable was on the horizon. It appeared as if Baker had played his final game in a Browns uniform. After the Deshaun Watson trade, a Baker Mayfield trade or release was inevitable. He eventually landed in Carolina, where after a quarterback battle and brutal 6-game stint that led to his benching,
it's Zach Allen again as the boos rain down there in Charlotte.
He requested to be released, which the team granted. Baker then immediately signed with the Rams and saved his career with that insane end-of-game moment just a few days after being signed.
And now he's 98 yards with a minute 45 and no timeouts away from having a chance to win it.
Hollywood, baby, send in the script. Let's see what happens. 2nd and 10. Mayfield to the end zone to Jefferson. Is that possible? Touchdown.
He ended up starting 4 games there in place of the injured Matt Stafford. Then in the offseason, he reached out to the Bucs for an opportunity, and they were like, okay, sure. We're probably going to be bad anyway and dropped a quarterback this season. Oh, wait.
Inside field goal range, lofted up. Godwin, touchdown, Tampa Bay.
Today, Baker Mayfield has solidified his job as the Bucs starting quarterback, and he signed a $100 million deal with the team. What a journey. For Baker, it's been an amazing story of redemption. For the Browns, it's been the opposite. They found a way to go from lovable underdogs who made the playoffs to one of the most hated teams in the entire league. Not only has Baker proven himself away from Cleveland, but the guy that they sold their soul for has barely played and has not been good when he has played. How crazy was it when, after Watson got hurt, Joe Flacco got off his couch and became the biggest hero in Cleveland in 2023? And much to the dismay of Browns fans, they let Flacco go. Not only did Cleveland get worse with Watson, but Houston getting rid of Watson has proved to be a huge winning move for them. Since trading Watson in 2022, they successfully have rebuilt their team with one of the most promising young quarterbacks in the league, 2023 first-round pick CJ Stroud. Speaking of rookie quarterbacks, 5 were drafted back in 2021 with the expectation they would all eventually lead the franchises that selected them. Let's take a quick look at all 5. With the number 1 pick,
the Jacksonville Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence.
This was a no-doubter.
There's a better chance of Bryson DeChambeau being the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next year. There's absolutely no way that Trevor Lawrence isn't going to Jacksonville first overall.
Lawrence had been regarded as a generational prospect, receiving the level of hype that most of us have only seen with Andrew Luck. In 3 seasons, Trevor Lawrence has been underwhelming compared to the generational hype he received pre-draft. He certainly has shown flashes at times, but has often left those who've watched him wanting more. Lawrence ranked out as the 15th best quarterback in 2023. A step back in 2023 made many question whether he would be the future in Jacksonville.
To be overrated, people have to view you as good. And I don't think if you just poll a lot of people, they view him as some high-end player now.
But the Jags doubled down on their belief in Lawrence, giving him the largest contract in NFL history, tied with Joe Burrow. Compared to the other so-called generational prospects, Lawrence is nowhere near those guys. Although, compared to the other quarterbacks in this class, you like the chances that Lawrence will at least be better than them. At this point, that's not saying much.
The New York Jets select Zach Wilson, quarterback, BYU.
In 3 seasons, Zach Wilson has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. The initial excitement died rather quickly, and within the first 2 years, the team began looking for other options. Among qualified quarterbacks in 2023, Wilson ranked dead last in QBR. He is now a backup to rookie Bo Nix in Denver. I saw a Reddit post highlighting just how catastrophic Wilson's career as a starter had been through 3 seasons. It's pretty insane when you see that he ranked out nearly dead last in most categories all 3 years. With the 3rd pick, the Niners surprised many, going with the FCS standout
Trey Lance, quarterback, North Dakota State.
Lance physically looked the part, possessing traits that had many scouts excited. Of all the 2021 first-rounders, Trey Lance has seen the least amount of time on the field due to injuries and a lack of ability to perform in practice enough to impress the coaches. In his first 2 seasons, with just 4 total games played in, the Niners cut their losses and traded Lance after the emergence of Brock Purdy. Lance was traded to Dallas, where he serves as the team's 3rd-string quarterback. As the most athletic quarterback in the class, Justin Fields was seen as a more physically gifted Dak Prescott.
Josh Allen was one who I had questions on, but because of these gifts, he goes to Buffalo, they build around him. If someone takes that same approach with Justin Fields, I'll come back here in 2 years and we're going to talk about, oh my God, how do we underestimate Justin Fields?
Justin Fields flashed his talent as a runner often while he was in Chicago, but his ability as a passer failed to develop in his 3 seasons there. Throughout his 3rd year, it was becoming clear that the Bears, who eventually secured the number 1 overall pick for 2024, were going to replace Fields. He was eventually traded to the Steelers, where he's currently listed as Russell Wilson's backup.
The 6-time world champion New England Patriots select Mac Jones.
Right away, he was impressive. He set multiple rookie records. He tied Tom Brady for the most consecutive completions by a Patriot. The Patriots made the playoffs, and Mac Jones was named to the Pro Bowl. Jones was named to the 2021 PFWA All-Rookie team and finished 2nd in the Offensive Rookie of the Year voting behind Jamar Chase. However, things took a step back in 2022. As his play on the field continued to worsen, his confidence clearly diminished, and his relationship with teammates was publicly put into question. By the end of year 3, there was no doubt that Mac Jones was no longer a starting caliber quarterback, and he was traded to Jacksonville, where he's now the backup to Trevor Lawrence. So all in all, 3 years later, 5 first-round rookie quarterbacks produced 1 starter and 4 backups. Let's look at the first-year coaches from 2021. I'll also put their corresponding grade they received from Sports Illustrated when they were hired. First up, David Culley, who had never been a coordinator in the NFL, was hired by the Texans. After a 4-13 first season, Culley was fired and hasn't returned to coaching in the NFL. In his defense, he was completely screwed from the get-go, considering how the Deshaun Watson situation unfolded. Next was Titans offensive coordinator Arthur Smith being hired by the Falcons. After 3 straight 7-10 seasons, Smith was fired. He was widely criticized for his inability to utilize the team's highly drafted offensive pieces. He is now the OC in Pittsburgh. In LA, Brandon Staley stayed in the same city, going from Rams defensive coordinator to Chargers head coach. His coaching tenure was notable for going for it on 4th down a lot. Also, for really bad defense, despite his history as a defensive coordinator. After a disastrous 2023, he was fired late in the season. In New York, former Niners defensive coordinator Robert Saleh was hired by the Jets. And although he still has his job, he is certainly on the hot seat after 3 rough seasons. Next up was Colts offensive coordinator Nick Sirianni, who was hired by the Eagles in 2021. By year 2, the Eagles shocked everyone with how dominant they were as they reached the Super Bowl before losing to the Chiefs. Sirianni has been known for his sideline antics during his time in Philly, and last season ended on a rough note. Despite making the playoffs in 2023, a bad year in 2024 could cost Sirianni his job. Moving on, what started as initial optimism due to his success in the college ranks turned into an absolute nightmare for both Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's go over some of his most notable moments after being hired. He signed Tim Tebow as a tight end, despite not being in the league for 6 years. He violated OTA contact rules, drawing fines for himself and the Jaguars. He allegedly kicked Josh Lambo in the leg during training camp. And perhaps worst of all, he received a dance from a woman who wasn't his wife at a bar while the Jags traveled home from a road game without him. And last but not least, he was fired after a 2-11 start amidst all those other issues. Finally, we have arrived at the final coach hired in 2021, Dan Campbell. Campbell was considered one of the worst hires by the media. He took over in Detroit despite never being a coordinator in the NFL, and was initially made fun of by the media for his introductory press conference.
We're going to kick you in the teeth, all right? And when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down, all right? And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you.
But 3 years later, Campbell has set the tone for the revival of Lions football. After his coaching style was featured on Hard Knocks, Campbell has been an easy guy to root for even fans of other teams. Of all the coaches hired in 2021, Campbell's job is the safest at the moment. Of course, I can't end this video without mentioning Jared Goff. Back in 2021, this dude was thrown out by the Rams like old leftovers on trash night. Despite a decent run in LA, Goff was at the center of the blame as to why the team was struggling. Over the years, there was increasing friction between Sean McVay, a type A personality, and Goff, a more laid-back type of guy. By the end of the 2020 season, the relationship had soured. McVay had basically blamed Goff for the team's failures and wanted someone new playing quarterback for him. Then in the offseason, the Rams made the massive move trading for Matt Stafford. Looking at the trade breakdown, it's very clear how much more valuable both parties saw Stafford compared to Goff. Goff was thrown in the deal as if to be like, well, I guess here's a guy you can throw under center while you guys rebuild. Meanwhile, the city of LA welcomed Stafford in with open arms. Even when the trade went down, McVay and Stafford were both in Cabo and celebrated getting dinner together. It was as if they had finally acquired the key piece the organization was missing. Later on, Goff admitted publicly how personally he took this whole ordeal. To make matters worse, it appeared as if LA was right, as Stafford led them to a Super Bowl victory in year 1. Meanwhile, the woes in Detroit continued. With Goff under center, they went 3-13-1 in 2021. But here's what's so awesome about this situation. Detroit rallied around Goff, putting their trust in him, and in 2022, things improved dramatically.
Goff going deep on first down. It is caught and taken in for a touchdown.
Goff was named a Pro Bowl alternate, and the team looked like they were on their way to becoming contenders. Then in 2023, it all came together. The team was awesome, Goff was awesome, and overall the city had rallied around their quarterback as they made it to the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. Here's one of the incredibly rare moments where a trade results in a big win for both teams. The Rams got the guy they needed to elevate them to a Super Bowl, while the Lions got a bunch of assets to help them rebuild, while also getting a quarterback with a chip on his shoulder who proved to still be a solid NFL quarterback. Plus, for Goff himself, he now played in a city where he was truly appreciated more than he ever was in LA. But here's the best part. Not only did Goff lead the Lions to their first playoff win since 1991, but it came against who else but the LA Rams, the team who let him go.
4th and a long yard. 2 for the touchdown. Goff looking to throw. Throws back to the end zone.